Hello, my name's Daniel Kratville, not Cattsville. I work for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm a fish biologist. I'm going to try and explain a little bit about scientific collecting permits, and hopefully people will understand why we are such a pain in the neck sometimes. It's not because we like being a pain in the neck. The laws make us do it. I am a fish biologist, but I have done a little bit of insect stuff. I did some New Zealand mudsdale stuff, so I've sat in front of a microscope and ID'd thousands of insects to family also. So I kind of understand how insect sampling can impact fish in the wild. So here's the mission of the department. The reason I have a job is because it's our mission to manage California's diverse fish, wildlife, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to try and go fast so that you guys can ask me questions, because I think it works better if you ask me questions than just listen to me read things. So the definition of take. Most people do not understand the definition of take. The definition of take is, it means to hunt, pursue, catch, capture, kill, or attempt to hunt, pursue, catch, capture, kill. And I highlighted attempt and pursue because those are very important words that put all of you into the need for a scientific collecting permit. Legally, if you attempt to pursue anything, so if you deploy a trap of any kind into the water, you're attempting to pursue everything in that water. And now you need an SCP. CISA, this is another law that I think about when you guys are out in the field. It's the California Endangered Species Act. It says no person shall import into the state, export out of the state, or take or possess. So remember the definition of take. So this is for CISA listed animals. You cannot take, so you cannot attempt to pursue a CISA listed animal without a permit. Fully protected species. This is the third one that makes you guys need a permit. So if you are, fully protected species is an old law. There's a list of these animals. And we cannot issue take for these. We cannot issue incidental take for fully protected species. So if you are in a place where there are fully protected fish or amphibians, you cannot do the work you want to do unless it is to research, including efforts to recover fully protected, threatened, or endangered species. So your take of that animal has to be for the purpose of restoring that animal. So if you're in fully protected range and you're not working on that animal, you can't do it. And we are handcuffed by this law. We cannot issue incidental take for that animal. And I should clarify that phrase incidental take. There's direct take and incidental take. Direct take is I am after Chinook salmon. I'm directly taking those. Incidental take is my net was set for Chinook salmon and I took steelhead. So you incidentally took steelhead. That's still take, and you still need a permit to take those animals. So we can't issue incidental take for these. So you're not allowed to take them. Okay, this is the law that describes the scientific collecting permit program. The department may issue permits to take or possess. That's the important thing, right? So now you guys are going to possibly take or possess any of these things. We can issue a permit to do it unless it's fully protected. So why does everyone here have to get an SCP now? It's because at the beginning of this year, I think it was the beginning of this year, all swamp used to be under memorandum of understanding. And there is nowhere in Fish and Game Code that says we can write a memorandum of understanding for swamp. So there was no legal basis for that memorandum of understanding. And so it had to be invalidated. And so all of you are pushed into SCP land. So what do? You guys apply for an SCP. And we read it, and we try and decide how it's going to impact fish and wildlife in that location during that time period. We contact regional biologists to see what they think about what your work might do in that place. Then once we have all the information that we need, we either approve it as it is, we make changes to the document, or we deny it completely. Hopefully we don't deny it completely. Our goal is 2 months, so this is a lot better than it used to be. I once had a scientific collecting permit when I worked here at UC Davis, and I got the permit 1.5 years after I applied for it. I didn't work here anymore when I got the permit, so it was useless to me. So 2 months is much better. The fisheries branch has been averaging 34 days for the last 12 months, so that's much better than it used to be. So hopefully it's a short enough time that you guys can apply for one and get it in time to do your work whenever you have work to do. So what we need in a permit, we need to know where, when, and how. If you don't tell us where, when, and how, I can't make the determination of the impacts of what you're going to do. And it's my responsibility to sign on the bottom of that form saying, I reviewed this and I think it's going to be fine the way it's going to be done. It's not going to adversely affect or over impact the resources in that place during that time period. So that's why we need these things. It's my job to review your projects before we let you do those projects. And I realize for some people this is difficult because you may not know these things when you're applying for the permit. But I can't get around, the law says I must do these things. So this is a permit that I will deny right off the bat, and we get these. I work for insert biological consultant company here, and my work requires me to collect native reptiles, amphibians, and vertebrates, and fish throughout the state of California year-round. So now I want someone in the room to tell me what the impact of his activity is going to be. No one can answer that question. So I can't award this permit, so it gets denied. So here is how, these are dewatered salmon reds, that's a whole nother issue. These are salmonid reds. These are Chinook salmon reds, but all salmonids make reds. So when you guys are in the field and you have a kick net or a Cerber sampler or a modified Hess sampler or something and you're digging around the gravel, if you're standing on top of a salmon red, you're killing salmon. So one of the things that we do that you guys might not be able to do, depending on your experience and expertise, is we look at what you're going to do, and then we think about where and when that's happening, and we decide if you're going to walk on these or sample these. And if it is at the same time period, same place, we try and work with you to get you to move it a month or stay out of this section of that stream because that's where they're spawning. So that's one of the things that we do to mitigate the impacts of your work or to keep you from hurting salmonids in any way or any other kind of fish. Salmon reds are an easy one to put as a demonstration. Here's another picture of some salmon reds. If anyone doesn't know, salmon red is a nest. It's where the salmon, they lay their eggs and they bury them in the gravel. So all those white spots are salmon reds. So if you're standing on the bank, they might not be very easy to see, especially if the water's a little murky. And if you want to sample over here, and you enter the lake river here, and you just walk across a whole bunch of them to sample over there. So that's take. And it's take that you didn't need to commit. If we had talked about it and said, hey, why don't you sample whatever down here or in that bank or down there or wait a month. So the future of the SCP program, we are switching to online applications, hopefully. I go to these meetings and we talk about it a lot, and hopefully that will happen. Right now, you guys submit a paper document, it gets scanned, and then we get a PDF of it, and then we go through with the red pointer line, mouse, and we X out things, or we make a text box. So it's sort of ancient technology that we use to work on your permits. That's one of the reasons it takes us so long. So hopefully online applications will speed that up. There'll be some automation of some tasks, and the idea is that you guys get permits a little faster. So a consultant who doesn't have work can apply for a permit and get it 2 weeks later, let's say. So you have enough time to bid on a job and get a permit for it. Here's my contact info. I'm going to leave this one up. This is the last one. Please call me. I love to talk on the phone. That's not true. But I would much rather answer your guys' questions before you apply for a permit, because it's much, much easier for us to talk about it and you submit it correctly than us to go through our PDF and do all this nonsense and email back and forth. So please call me. If you call me and I don't answer the phone, I should say that I'm not the only one doing this. I have 3 sides that help a lot. Scientific aids are temporary people. And this is their phone number. And so they are the ones actively working on your permit at any point in time, probably. So either that phone number or the phone number below, you will get a hold of us and we can help. So I know I went kind of fast and it wasn't super in-depth, but it's before lunch and I don't want to get stabbed. So does anyone have any questions? Lots.
Do all members of a field crew have to have a permit?
No, good question. So there just needs to be one permitted person on site when the activity is occurring, but that person needs to have control of the people that are doing the work. So you can't have a person with a permit on one bend and then people working 3 bends down the river where you can't control what they're doing. That's happened in the past, and people of 3 bends down were doing illegal stuff, and wardens got involved, and it was a big nightmare. So you have to be in control of your worker bees.
Could you briefly recap again the basis for take if there are no listed species?
If there's no listed species,
Yes, I thought take mainly had to do with the take of listed species either under CISA or ESA.
So the definition of take occurs for all invertebrates, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, everything is protected by the Fish and Game Code itself, right? And you need a permit via the scientific collecting permit. Oops, wrong way. So this part of code says that you have to have a permit to take or possess in any part of the state for scientific, educational, or propagation purposes, mammals, birds, and the nests, blah, blah, blah. So this section of code says you must get a scientific collecting permit if you're going to commit take on anything in the state, except plants. Plants have their own weird law.
At what point, or rather, what's the difference between a collecting permit and a fishing license based on except for numbers?
Well, there's numbers and there's reason for take and there's disposition of specimens after the fact, right? So in fishing laws, there are very specific things that you can do with those animals after you capture them and very specific reasons for you capturing them and very specific methods by which you capture them. With a SCP, not only do the numbers change, but the locations change. You can use an SCP in places you can't fish. You can use methods you can't use. You can use nets and things, let's say. You can take more of them. You can do terrible things to them, right? Like dumping insects in ethanol. So there's a big difference. And if you are out collecting things under a fishing license and a warden stops you, you're probably going to be in trouble. So it's better to get an SCP.
And then another question is, you said there's no longer a memo of understanding with the water board or the swamp people.
Right.
What about within the department, California Department of Fish and Wildlife?
So the department we don't permit ourselves, so department employees can do anything they want. It's kind of strange.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could provide some more specific guidance for people trying to do probabilistic sampling.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Could you provide some guidance for people trying to do probabilistic sampling? where
So
the
you mean
locations aren't-
the locations aren't known?
Right, or at
right,
least not
okay.
with clarity until right before sampling.
There's zillions of locations, right? So I think what we need to do with those kind of permits is, we know the water bodies, right? So we need to look at the water bodies and work out places where you could show up at any time and not impact anything. Or it's very possible a lot of this stuff occurs, let's say, in an urban watershed where everything's dead anyway, so your impacts are very small. So if we can work together to figure that out, then you can get a permit to show up and do things randomly and you don't get your statistics all out of whack.
I have one question anyway. What about college students when they're going out for their entomology class? They go out and do collections, and also the fact that I myself will be doing similar things. If I go by a stream and I like to find out what's in there, do I need a permit to do that? Because you're saying, you need a fishing license, but I'm just going out on my own and dipping my net and going through and what's there. Do I need a permit to do that?
So technically, you need an SCP to do that. Now, whether or not a warden is going to put you in handcuffs over that, I don't know. But the letter of the law says that if you are in a stream collecting things, you need a permit because you're committing take.
But
I kind of jumped around your question because I don't have a good answer. Because the law...
It's not for scientific work, it's just,
Right, so here's a weird thing, right? So on those reds, if you're not doing science and you're just playing in the creek, you can jump all over them. And there's nothing will be done to you. But if you are a scientist and you are taking samples out there and you're stomping on reds, you could be in big trouble and you may never get a permit again, which means you have to find a new career. So it's wonky. I totally agree, but I'm not a politician.
Yeah, a while ago we exchanged some emails and you had mentioned the potential for having institutional permits.
Right, okay, so there's something I should have put in there. So new this year we have something called an entity permit, which means that an entity, let's say a consultant company, can apply for a permit for all of their employees. So there's just one permit that covers everybody, which makes it a little bit easier for a big group of people. The catch is that permittee is responsible for the actions of everyone on that permit. So if any one of those employees screws up, that whole permit's gone and now the whole company's out of luck. So there's that to consider. The other thing to consider is that we don't want, for an entity permit, we don't want the president of the company signing it. Don't want the president to be the primary investigator. We want people that actually know what's happening each day as a primary investigator so that I can call them, say, hey, what happened? And they actually know what happened. That's what supervision is from our point of view. I don't have a microphone.
I have a mic. Hey, Danielle, it's Mary back here. I was just wondering if you thought it might be possible to do some sort of trainings or organize some trainings for a couple things, invasive species, which obviously mud snails are near and dear to your heart, and
Right.
also, sensitive species and recognizing their habitats and things like that for maybe even something to go along with the College of Bio assessment, just kind of a preventative.
Right. We don't have any money.
I know, but through
So-
the water board, we might be able to, it would still require somebody like yourself's time to do something like that.
Right,
But
right,
through
yeah.
our training academy, we might be able to fund something like that.
I mean, I would be willing. That's why I'm here now, right? This is one of the first times we ever did this, so that's a good idea. I think it would be very helpful for most people, and it'd be helpful for us too if we get permits that meet our needs. Saves everyone a lot of time.
Yeah, I just had one clarification point for Fish and Wildlife employees. Generally, we don't need to get scientific collection permits, but if
Right.
there's a federally listed
Right.
species, we would have to get a federal
Right.
take permit.
Right, that's only for state law or we protect it, but federal law, you need either a Section 10 or a Section 7 or a 4D if it's an anadromous fish. So there's lots of federal things you might need.
I have a quick question. So permits are issued for specific projects.
Right,
So is there, like, if you get a permit, is it valid for 2 years or
It's valid for 3 years.
for 3 years? But if you get it for one project, now here comes another project, you have
Right.
to submit
You
new
have to submit an
information
amendment,
for that project.
right.
So you can't just call the warden and get him to approve.
No, no, you have to submit an amendment, it has to be reviewed, the whole 9 yards, yeah.
Thank you.
So, one thing about the cost and like amendments and all these things is the department was spending $6 for every dollar we got in for permit fees. So there was a complete loss for us to do this at all. So that's why there's so much more money and you have to submit amendments, because in order for me to buy groceries, we need you guys to pay for permit fees. This year now, there's a $100 non-refundable application fee. So if it gets denied, you don't get that back. So don't submit that blanket permit that I showed. Then on top of that, there is I think it's $305 permit fee that you get charged after we approve it. So I think it's $405 for the permit itself. And I think amendments are $100. Yeah, I think. It's all on I should have put the website up here, that was stupid. But you guys can email me and I'll,
It's good for 3 years now.
yeah, it's good for 3 years. So it is good longer than it used to be. Oops, ah, shit.
Well, it's on the Fish and Game website.
So a person could have trouble keeping up. Somebody might have had a scientific collecting permit that they used to use for bioassessment.
Right.
And then the department phased off those kind of blanket approvals. Then it was the MOU. Last year, my organization really made an effort to inquire with Fish and Game at the time. And I don't know if we spoke with you. Michael Carbiner was the individual who took the lead on finding out, how we could go about our regular biological consulting work. And from the fisheries branch, what we heard was a lot of the things that we were doing could be authorized via email from the local biologist, and that a lot of what we were doing wasn't science. So it sounds like that's changed as well with this.
Right, yeah, I would be leery about saying I got an email and it allows me to do things, because
Okay.
that's not true.
Okay, and then the entity.
Even though everyone might agree that what you're doing is harmless, you're breaking the law, so consider that.
And the entity permit, you also need the who, what, when, where, and you also
yeah.
need that PI within 300 feet of any activity. I mean, the entity might have
Well,
a
right,
couple
so-
of different field projects going at the same time.
Right, exactly. So I should clarify, the signatory of the permit is the permittee, and then there are primary investigators, and you list as many of those as you need to for each project. And that primary investigator is responsible for the work that the people on the permit are doing. And even that primary investigator doesn't have to be in the field, but you list names of people that you guys are willing to be responsible in the field. So the names on the permit are the people that have to be in control of let's say you have a permanent employee and you have 3 volunteers, they have to be in control of those 3 volunteers that might turn over rapidly.
Okay, and then existing permits can be amended, should
Right.
be amended following these same
Right.
new guidelines.
Right, right.
I wonder 2 things. If the department has complete information and knowledge on all the streams of the state so that they can instantly issue a permit.
It's all in here.
If
No.
you could comment on the extent or how you go about, whether you would have to go out in the field in response to an application or something.
Well, I'm still on the first one. The regional biologist, we contact the regional biologist, right? And so theoretically, that regional person, that district biologist does have that information. Now, they don't also answer us right away, right? And if they don't answer us after some period of time, I make a call about where that is and what you're doing. So we do it as instantaneous as we possibly can. Now, in the new system, that's part of the idea, that we would have the ability to go into a database and say, here's where this is, and these animals don't occur here, so we're good, issue it. What was the second part?
Well, I'd add another question, which was, what were the penalties for a violation of either violating a permit or failing to get one? Is it infraction, misdemeanor, felony, what?
I don't know what the criminal penalties are, but penalties from my point of view are you won't get another one. So when that expires, you won't get another permit and you don't get to work anymore. So that's kind of the worst punishment I think you could get, really. And I don't decide that, right? A bunch of managers would decide that kind of stuff in our office.
If they buy you a lunch, what do they get?
No.
Is the amendment process faster or the same as the?
It's
regular
generally
permit?
faster because it's usually less, it's like one project, you know, so there's less work for us to do on that. But it goes through the same process.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are on using the SCP process in ensuring that permittees stay current with the most updated BMI collection protocols, because
Okay, right.
they do change.
So people that work with Jim on Swamp get accelerated permit processing, right? So when we get a permit and says I'm doing swamp work, we talk to Jim and we talk a little bit about it maybe and say, yeah, this guy's doing this stuff here and it's gonna be fine, and they go out the door like that. So in that sense, we know that Jim is right on the cutting edge of everything. So we speed it up. Now, we don't have the ability to go through all methods in permits and decide whether or not it's the best method for that person to use. It's on the researcher to decide that, really. I would like to do that, but I don't have time to do that, you know, because if the information you're collecting is useless, then you're collecting things, you're impacting things for no reason. But we don't have the ability to do that. There's only me. And there's thousands and thousands of you guys.
Is it a requirement still then that when you actually go out to do the work that you contact the warden or local office?
Right,
to let
yeah,
them know
that's always best. That way the warden doesn't sit in the trees watching you all day and then find out you have a permit and he wasted his day. They get really mad.
But is that a requirement or is that courtesy?
That is a requirement, actually, that you need to contact the region and tell them I'm gonna be out here this day. That also allows the region another opportunity to say, wait, there's something crazy happening there right now. Please don't go, or let's work together and change something.
Daniel, I had a question about collection of algae only, so not invertebrates.
Right.
If that's happening, does that require a scientific collection permit, or is that a plant?
Right, so technically, I think you don't need one, but if you take, remember the definition of take, attempt to pursue anything that's not a plant or algae, then you need an SCP. And that's the difference between take and incidental take. They're both take, but one when I used to use that modified Hess, we would catch sculpin every once in a while, and I wasn't after that, but we caught him anyway. I committed take on that sculpin, and so I needed a permit to take that sculpin.
Thanks.